Okay, good morning. Good morning. It's been a pleasure to be a part of your group and dialogue and meeting you. Not unlike your superintendent here today, this morning when he said he gave you credit for coming together and taking the time to dialogue and get your thoughts out, that credit should be given, because that's not every community does that, and it has to happen in order for you to see things and begin to look at things from different perspectives. So, and in addition to that, I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak. It's not easy to be a school superintendent, so applause to this gentleman here. Okay, so it's all about stories, and I'm going to attempt to give you my story today. And the word "my" is probably not appropriate, because my story became an our story. So I won't start when I was born. You know, those kids that start with their when I was born, that'll take you too long. But I was an elementary teacher, and I knew from the very beginning that I wanted to do something more exciting with my classroom. And so I created learning centers and had the community start coming in, and I did sewing centers and cooking centers and science centers and architecture centers. And what I didn't know was that was the beginning of my whole passion as an educator for partnering, because I never was satisfied with the way it could be. I always wanted to bring more into the classroom for the students that really were ignited by different interests, very much like the spoken this morning. But then I moved on and had a realization that if students couldn't read, they really couldn't. They would always be dependent on someone else to make decisions and tell them what was going on. It frustrated me, so I got a degree in reading, and then I went on to teach at the high school. I found that really teaching at the high school was not much different than teaching in third grade. They were bigger, but they basically, you know, people go, "How did you make that leap?" It really wasn't very hard. And at the high school, my background started by collaborating with all various teachers, because I was a reading teacher, so I collaborated with the science teacher and the math teacher and social science in order to help construct curriculum and lessons that would be appropriate to teach mathematics and science through a variety of disciplines, so that it didn't have to just be labeled science and math and so forth, that everybody, all professionals, were responsible for teaching all of the curriculum. And so it was reading in the content. And I did that for 10 years. And then someone tapped me. It is about mentoring. Actually, I was tapped in elementary school too about reading, but it was somebody tapped me and said, "Have you ever thought about becoming an administrator?" And I said, "No." No. They said, "Well, you really should think about it." So I went back to school and got certified. And when that happened, I ended up becoming an assistant principal. And I did that for 7 years. And my focus at that time was on special ed and reading and mathematics and science, which you could think, But again, a foreshadowing, because math and science were somewhat always there, and it was still the collaborating. How do you build these connections between all of the disciplines? And then I had the opportunity. This was not in Aurora. This was an elementary district, and then a high school district, and then I had the opportunity to move to Aurora. I applied for a job in Ed Week. It looked interesting. I'd never been to Aurora. I drove there, and I met the superintendent of the school district. And I realized that he was the kind of person, from my original dialogue with him, that I could learn from him. And it was all about being in a place that you could continue to learn. And I knew I could learn from this man about education and what to do to become a better educator and thinker. And so I was hired as the assistant superintendent and had the opportunity to collaborate K-12 which was just amazing to be able to see the whole picture and get teachers from across the grade levels vested. And then ultimately, I became the superintendent of that district and was able to collaborate with the Board of Education. And together, being able to form collective visions with the community, because the board represents the community. And that was an amazing and exciting opportunity for me. When I retired, then I became the executive director for the Institute for Collaboration. So you see, the story really was all taken and begun, rather, as that third grade teacher. And so I don't want to tell you that third grade teachers are very important, but third grade teachers and teachers are very important because it's about their vision that ultimately can create the feeling about what they want to do and what others can do around them. So what I've learned from all of that, there's really only one question that I have to pose all the time when anything is done. Just one. How will what we're doing improve academic achievement of students? That's the only question. And, you know, you can sit and talk a lot about various things at board meetings and conversations. You know, how do you do the parking lot, and should the wall be this high, and you know, everything else. But if I were to recreate my board agenda now, it's a wonderful opportunity to do board agendas. I would put that question next to everything, because it really does help you prioritize what's important and what time, you know, how much time you should spend on the conversation. And right on the heels of that question is how will our teachers improve their content expertise and pedagogy skills? So again, if I were to recreate the agenda, that's probably what I would do best at doing. And then in partnering, you just add one other question when you partner. To your businesses and corporations and institutions that you partner with, you simply say, how does this agenda advance, or how and what I'm doing, can it advance the mission of our company? And is it a program aligned to the initiatives we're trying to achieve? Now that's a very important point, because that's not a vendor relationship. It's not you're paying for a service and someone's giving it to you, but rather you're saying that if you partner, both will be improved. There'll be a win-win. In businesses partnering with a school district will improve themselves because they're partnering with you, and vice versa. And you've got to really believe that, and it takes time to build that relationship to get that belief. You have to believe that you have so much of value as a school district that you will improve the Honda dealership by their partnering with you. And if you believe that, and have the conversation about that, and spend time about how it can improve them as well, then you have a partnership. So it's a pretty simple slide. It's really about mutual trust and respect. If you're bringing someone in the room with you and you want to talk to them about partnering, you have to first of all learn to respect them and trust. And it's no different than any relationship. And it's really important because you're going to eventually partner and talk about services and dollars that could be in the millions. And so you both have to feel that there's a gain. You never can look at your school district as saying, we are in need and we're looking to you for help. No, you have so many resources, we're looking to you to partner with us so we can improve you as well as you can improve us. Because if it's from a need perspective, then you'll always be here and the partner will be here, and that white horse mentality, you know, I'm coming in on a white horse to save you, you don't need to be saved. You need to be improved, and you need to help them improve themselves, because we can all improve ourselves. It's a very, that's a core about partnering. So it was funny, one of the school districts that I work with, East Aurora, their curriculum person said, we're so appreciative that you've asked our teachers to come to develop curriculum with you at the university. Usually it's saying, what do you need? But you said you'll bring your teachers there. Our teachers can come and help and participate in writing it. So you elevated the fact that they have something to offer. You know, it's not from need. So it's a very important point. So it's a very simple diagram. I mean, anybody could do this diagram. You have institution A, which could be you, and institution B, which is someone else, and you both have connections. Public schools have amazing connections, you know, things that other companies don't have, and vice versa. And you say, you know what, we both have goals, we both have some resources, and we both have people, wonderful, educated people. So the idea is that if you can possibly come together and determine a goal, maybe not multiple goals, there could be more than one goal, and ultimately, if that happens, you have more money, you have more people, and you have more connections. It's such a simple diagram, but that's really the core about partnering, and it plays at the classroom level, and it plays at the building level, and the district level, and community level. Now Congress, you know, I mean, you have to get along, and you have to come to consensus about what are the goals you want to achieve. But I think that there is proof that it certainly can happen. So there are positives about doing this. You all can share in the achievement of these mutually developed goals. You share a vested stake in determining what will deem them successful or not. You'll set your outcomes together and then how to evaluate them. In other words, everyone at the table has an equal value. And it's not a myopic view. Educators, if it's only educators at the table when they think about trying to create anything or change things, it's only from their perspective. So it broadens the table's perspective. It broadens the view right away. And everyone says this is ours. And so the vested stake. Now there are some issues. First of all, the coming together. The building trust. People say, oh, I don't have the time. Well, you have to be very willing to make the time. And you have to do face-to-face. People don't trust people they've never met. People won't work with people that they don't know. You need to know people. And I don't mean to, you know, get into their personal lives, but you need to know them on some level, and you need to be sincere. You need to have that trust. And then together, once that's done, then you can decide on those common outcomes. For example, and I'm going to use the red group. We were talking about the auto shop, the principal, didn't catch her name, the former principal, there he is. And you know, if you want to think through that, even at the classroom level, and if you want this to happen, you bring in you were on the cusp of that conversation, you bring in organizations that maybe have auto shop as a key component to something that they need, like Longo Honda, and they obviously need an employee pool. Oh, Toyota, oh, sorry. Oh, that wasn't very good. Well, sorry. But Longo, Toyota. If they're in the room, that probably wouldn't have been good. I'm sorry. But at any rate, they have a vested need, you know, and you have an environment, and it's a matter of exciting and igniting, and you work together, and maybe they run that auto shop, and you bring in teachers that can credential it, but what's wrong with that? So it's the partnership, it's not a vendor, and it's a win-win. But again, you'd have to decide mutually about the outcomes. And the other thing, I was just saying to this woman over here, this superintendent, that when you have these conversations, you really have to listen to each other. You can't turn off and not hear what they're saying. And they'll know that you're listening because you incorporate what they said. But if you're not really ready to partner, then you're not going to really hear what that person says. They would say the words, and you've really got your idea of what you want in your mind. You do have to give up some of your thinking in order to make sure that what's happening is vested by both partners. So it's not a vendor. You're not buying the service from someone because you want to mutually do it and share. I say, by partnering, you take where you are and where your partner is, and I use the word, you maximize capacity. And ultimately, you maximize the opportunity. So at the classroom level, when I was this third grade teacher, I was maximizing that classroom by bringing in parents that ran the sewing center and the cooking center, and instead of seat work. I really never cared too much for seat work. It used to drive me nuts. So the kids would rotate into different centers, and the parents came in and willingly participated. So we were already maximizing that classroom level. At our high school, we wanted to do a foods agenda and pay for it, and we were the first in the nation to call up Starbucks and said, you know, we have an idea. Could we maybe have a Starbucks cafe in our high school? You know, and never be afraid to make the phone call, because all they could say is no. And we brought, Starbucks came out, we talked to them, and we started to serve Starbucks coffee, and we could charge for it. We had to use their cups, of course, and their coffee. And ultimately, the teachers would come in, buy Starbucks, the kids would come in, we'd start making money, and we'd sell our pastries, and we were able to fund our cooking program. And then a most poignant story, when I was teaching a master's program, a teacher from St. Charles, Illinois, did as her project the fact that she couldn't understand why her special ed kids never seemed to be able to integrate with others on the playground in any of the free time. And she said, I want to do this as my project. I want to figure this out. At the end, her aha was, she said, what I have found out about the issue is I don't collaborate with the other teachers in the building. I find that I isolate myself, that I don't go to the lunchroom and eat with other people and listen to what's going on in other classes. I tend to come in early in the morning and spend time in my classroom, leave at the end of the day. And the minute I realized that it was kind of also about me, my kids, I was modeling for them, they were watching me, and in some respects, they were trying to isolate themselves. The moment she started talking to other teachers and building connections with the people down the hall, she was able to get her kids connected to other classrooms, and it made a big difference for her. Very simple point, but it's about collaborating, about feeling confident to connect with other people. Okay, we'll see if this, okay. So then you can take it to a different level at the community. The city library in Aurora wanted to build a new facility. And one of our middle schools, we really needed more library space, and we had no technology center. So working with the head of the library, Janet Clark was her name, and the mayor of the community, we're a home rule city, we decided that maybe we could partner and have a win-win. And so they built the library branch adjacent to the middle school, Washington. And in addition, they built a technology center for the city adjacent to it. And the good news about this, when you collaborate, is we got a 70-30 split on the construction of the library. City paid 70%, school district paid 30%. And we got a 50-50 split on the tech center for the, so that was the whole facility, and then 50-50 split on the technology inside with an evergreen policy, kind of the same way. Now that's a win-win. Everybody benefited. We had something that we had to man the technology center on the weekends and after school, and the libraries, you know, and it's wonderful, separate entrance, so you can go in. Of course, we had the security door and all, but so that the public couldn't enter into the tech center, but the kids use the tech center during the day, public use in the evening and after school. After school and on the weekends. Another example of collaborating is that the university at the time had a college of education that really was in a situation where it needed kind of a reinvigoration. I, as a superintendent, was in a situation where I needed space. Didn't have enough classroom space at a neighborhood school. So together, this was in 1995, I asked for some space on the campus, and we created what we called a partnership school. So the fourth graders from the neighborhood school would walk down to the university, well, actually, or bus to the university, and the teachers of those fourth grade sections, and there were 3 of them, began to teach methods courses for the university. And at the same time, the kids were on the campus. They were able to use the library of the university. They had lunch in the university cafeteria. They did gym in the physical education facilities at the university. And it began the relationship of a strong collaboration with the local university called Aurora, which is a small private school. Now you may think, how does a public school district connect itself up with a private school? And we did it on a lease agreement. Actually, this agreement was, we paid $2,000 a month for the custodial upkeep of the school, but they gave us the space. Subsequent to that, because it became successful, we wrote a long-term lease agreement where the school district and the university, we leased that space on the campus. But then it was such a neat idea that the Department of Human Resources for the federal department actually allocated us funding to build the Institute for Collaboration, of which the partnership school moved into. And again, being the superintendent, we had developed a long-term lease agreement where we paid what we paid the lease agreement up front to actually pay for the space of 8 classrooms, 8 resource rooms, and 4 offices for our partnership school. Now we have 2 elementary schools involved of feeding their kids to the campus. What we found is the students at a very young age that go to school on a university campus, not only do they get more mature during the year, but long-term study has shown that a higher percentage of those students end up going to college than the normal percentage of our students as they matriculate through our school system. And what that says is, it's, again, like this morning, it's about exposure. You know, kids, and when they say, where do they go to school? They go to school at Aurora University, and they're in 4th grade. At the end of the year, they get a scholarship from the university for $1,000 that keeps adding on to the fact that they graduate. And we've had now about 30 students that have come back to the university. And I tell the parents when they get that scholarship, you put that in a safety deposit box, because you never know if your student would want to come back to AU. But automatically their goal is, I'm going to go to college. The university had no tennis courts. School district had no tennis courts, even though we had a state championship tennis team. I used to think that that was the reason why we had the state champion tennis team, was we had no courts, but we had no courts. The university didn't have any courts, and so I thought, could we build some courts and partnering with the university. The university had never really done this kind of thing before, but they thought it was a good idea. We're fairly close proximity, not real close, but fairly close. And so the university gave us, at the time, I think, 50-50 split on the creation of the courts. They're still standing and they're still used. And we organize ourselves with our schedule through our ADs. Subsequent to that, and you think, yeah, that happened and now she's gone and the whole thing's kaput. Subsequent to that, the school district just put turf down on the football field. The university needed additional space for their kids to practice lacrosse. And so the university entered into a relationship now with the school district just last year, and paid $250,000 toward the cost of the returfing so that their students could use the field. This is a community. This is not a school district. This is not a university. It's about finding the logical connections on a win-win basis that everybody sees as an opportunity, not a vendor. The elementary schools that we have we were a fairly non-affluent district, and so to keep refurbishing playground equipment, and you may do this as well, but you tap on the door of the local park district and say, you know, our parks belong and the schools belong to the community. If you help us in buying the playground equipment and and the upkeep of the parks and fields, in return you can use them when the school's not in session and on the weekends. And so, and as I said to the park district person, look, you're evaluated on how well your parks operate and your fields are kept. I only get assessed on how well the students are learning. Doesn't it make sense that you pay for this and I can do what I pay for? Because it does. It just drove me nuts. So that's how we started the relationship. Now you get to a point where if we're going to begin to construct schools, should schools just be constructed with the end purpose of kids being educated in this certain area, or can we begin to look at other entities that have a vested stake in the school interior? And this is where we began to have very serious dialogue, again, with the university at this time. Now, again, we're building relationships with the university. Prior to my coming, the university and the school district had no relationship, none. So it was about the talking and visiting with the president and the provost and the dean of the College of Ed and trying to build that. And so we began to think about building our school, a new school, which was Fern, with a university presence. Again, they ended up paying for space that we created at the school that could be a professional development center for teachers in the building. And at the same time, we started kind of an immersion program for education students. So starting their freshman year, they began to play roles as lunchroom supervisors, playground supervisors. And then their sophomore year, they did more things in the classroom. And we began to build an army of people that would come into our schools and help us from the university. And they had a place there, which was their classroom. And actually, it became our classroom together. So we did that at Fern. And that kind of focus was on literacy. And we did it at Greenman. And that focus, again, with the university was more on science. But at Greenman, I visited with the person from the YMCA. And the school district really was looking for an opportunity to have an all-day kindergarten. We didn't have the resources to put one in. And the YMCA, I said, you know, maybe we can start an all-day kindergarten program and after-school and before-school program. If we can collaborate on some space here, we can actually have it as part of the school. And so the YMCA gave us, I think at the time it was like $225,000 to build space for a kindergarten center. The university gave us space for additional classrooms, and all of a sudden, the cost of the school ends up going down, but the amount of capacity that you're building for people helping is going up. And we did the same at a middle school called Herget. We again worked with the university on professional development for mathematics, this time at the middle school, to have mathematics majors that were going to be middle school teachers begin to actually do their coursework and work at the school and work in classrooms. We worked with the YMCA and we built a fitness center on the side of the building so that it had a private entrance. People could come and go in the mornings. And so it was kind of a win-win at a community center, but actually a school district. Subsequent to this, the teachers began to think that the university had some capacity to help them build in their skills and knowledge. And we had many teachers in our school district that had never gone on and received master's degrees For some reason, this wasn't a priority. And so we began to think if we created a master's program, kind of collaboratively in a way, with some teacher input, that perhaps we could get people to get excited and want to come and take graduate courses. And so myself and the former school superintendent created this master's degree program and encouraged the teachers from the school district, actually ended up being about 47 people, that came into the program. And we formulated the program all around the needs of the school district. And it was a K-12 group of teachers that worked on these. So from this university collaboration, it wasn't just about curriculum building, and it was about sharing facilities, figuring out how things can all come together. Oh, sorry. The picture that you see here is kind of an ongoing to that. Through the Institute, we heard the need from the school district that teachers were really hard pressed to go back to school because they didn't have the monetary resources. And we also heard from the school districts that the areas of greatest need were in mathematics and science. And so collectively, with a group of community partners, two museums, the Robert Crown Center for Health Education, SciTech Hands-On Museum, the Illinois Mathematics and Science Academy, and an engineering firm, we designed, again, 3 different master's degree programs and submitted them to the state to have them approved so that they would be fully funded by the state of Illinois, and the teachers could come and take and get their master's degrees in mathematics and science and would be able to improve their skills, but at the same time at no cost to the school district. So you begin to see that if there is a relationship that has been built, like ours in the university, and with these other entities, that, as I was telling you, the school district itself and the university itself the university itself is fairly small. We have 4,000 students. But with the partnerships that we've been able to build, we've been able to maximize capacity and be able to have done more things because of the relationships that we brought to the table. At a community level, there was a situation where we had students in the school district that were not being very successful. And not only weren't they successful, but they'd created some criminal activity that was putting them into a situation where they could no longer participate in our high school and our middle schools. And instead of just expelling them, which kind of drove me crazy, we decided that maybe there was an opportunity to bring together people in the community that could design a school that would be supported by the cities themselves so that the kids could go to school and not be expelled. And we started a relationship with 2 other school districts around Aurora so that we could have enough resources to do this. And we ultimately designed an alternative school between 3 school districts, the state of Illinois, the city of Aurora, that ultimately offset the tuition per capita cost of each child going there so that it wasn't taking away from the operation cost of the school district, and we could actually have an alternative school function. And it was organized, and not organized, it was managed by another party. So not necessarily school personnel, which was agreed upon by the unions and so forth, and so that the cost could be kept fairly minimum. But the school still, it started in 1996 and is still operating today. We had to get it approved by the state of Illinois in order to actually create a school with these 3 districts for an alternative purpose. The city, by the way, to this day, pays over $350,000 a year to run the school. And the point was that the city had as strong as vested stake as the school district did for the school, because it's their kids, our kids. By the way, that school now is run by an urban league, the Urban League Quad County, 4 different county urban league that is running the school. So if you built up these partnerships about trust and respect, and you end up, what we have done is we have designed a committee that actually meets on a monthly basis. And they represent social service, government, business, 4 school districts, the university, the community college. It's like your Futures Conference every month. And we meet for an hour and a half so that we never lose sight of the fact that this is about coming together and being face to face and thinking about opportunity. And 2 years ago, a community funder challenged the community as a whole to come up with an idea that could change the community for a positive. Well, our group was already assembled. And we met, and going back to that first slide, what could be the idea that we could all agree on, that was needed, that we could get our arms around and write up as a proposal? And the thought that came forward was, we need to work on mathematics and science. It was the area of greatest need. And we wanted to design a school together that could actually, and a center that could support teacher learning, that could support an after-school program, that could support a summer experience, and that could support a STEM school. By the way, the Institute itself, since its inception in 2005, has launched a total citywide after-school program for over 1,000 middle schoolers, and we've raised all the money to support that through partners. And we've raised enough revenue to support the master's programs now and workshops, as well as summer schools for a summer experience for kids. So we put in our proposal, and we won first prize, which was $100,000. And then we took that $100,000, and I say we now, this group that meets on a monthly, this grassroots group of individuals just like yourselves, and we took the 100 and we reinvested it into planning to see if we could get this thing off the ground. And we've written a proposal subsequent to that, received another $250,000, and then another $100,000. And now we have made a commitment that we have all the parts of these gears now in place, except for the school and an undergraduate program. And we have gone to, we are now at a level where we sit down and talk to international companies that are in our area and in Chicago to talk about our grassroots initiative that started with a small partnership school. And we explained to them that we are just a band of individuals with a vested stake in making our community better. And here's what we truly believe can happen. We want to design a curriculum collaboratively for the school. We don't want it designed just by teachers. We don't want it designed by university faculty. We want it designed by community members, and we're very vested that we believe that kids can be taught in somewhat different manner at the school, but at the same time, we've committed ourselves to continuing to educate the teachers by continuing to look for scholarship dollars so that they don't have to put their dollars out to get their degrees and further their education. And when we go to a company now, and this just amazes me, and if you leave with nothing else, a very large corporation about a month ago, we sit down and we talk, And you try to build a relationship with the person that's the CEO. You want to talk to the person who's the head person that can speak for the organization. And you talk to them, and you need to be sincere about your story. Because people understand stories. And they became very engaged in our communication. And after the story was done, we asked if we could take a tour of the place, and we came back. And subsequent to that, this company made a very, very nice large donation to support the school. Now, today, there are a lot of people knocking on corporation doors. And this, you're asking for dollars for something that's not here yet. You're just asking them to give you dollars because you've shown them that you have taken things seriously, and you want them to build faith in you. So it has convinced me that it's about the teacher that goes to the local business, like we talked about today, the optometrist, or whoever wants to make that connection. And you build faith in the person. And if once you've gotten that connection with the person, you can really do anything. You absolutely can. So we now have 22 faculty involved from the university. We have some major business partners in our collaboration, like Freudenberg, Exelon. Exelon is our largest business partner now. Nicor Gas, Cabot Microelectronics, Caterpillar. Our community partners are still the Illinois Math and Science Academy and an Urban League and a DuPage Children's Museum and our Fox Valley Park District, and we have 4 school districts and 6 cities, 5 besides Aurora, that have joined in making collaboration to find dollars and resources to achieve goals for the students in our schools. Because there's not enough money to fund the schools today if you look for just the natural sources. So there's your school, and you have taxes and state entitlements and some community resources, some of which you talked about today, and you have federal grants. It's so simple. But it doesn't give the school enough money to provide all the resources you want for your children. It's about opportunity and exposing them. So then you can go into the community itself, which you talked about earlier. You know, police and fire and city and the park district and the public library. And that makes your school a little wider and by opportunity. But then when you move it even further to universities and healthcare institutions and the Chamber of Commerce's and private foundations, the school begins to expand even to a further degree. And I think that ultimately the picture that you want is not to change the core value of the school, but to broaden what ultimately can happen to the students in it by providing more opportunities, by just engaging in partnerships. So it starts with a conversation with someone that you believe could add value to your students. But also, what's so critical is you have to believe that when you have that conversation, you can add value back to that organization. And once they see that what the value is that could be added to them, they can go to their boards or whoever makes the decision for them, and they can say, you know what, we need to get involved in this. We need to get involved in this because the school district really could help us in some ways. School districts have amazing resources that businesses don't have, and vice versa. But you have to believe, I tell the teacher, you know, we are professional educators. The word professional is very important. And when you present yourself like that, the business community begins to have a realization of the value and worth of the educator. And they want them to now become a partner with them. Not every place, but I've given you a list of some very major companies that don't have to give to this small entity, this little grassroots band of people that are just like yourselves, that started this institute in 2005, not that long ago, and have now since raised about total, with the money we've raised for the school now, about $15 million. So I'm convinced, I am convinced. The school district took their bond issue, and by partnering, we added about 6 to 7 million onto the original bond, just by partnerships, vested stakes with a win-win attitude. So I guess I'd leave you with the question. So what if you were to partner? What if you could find that kind of a partner that you could gain from on a win-win basis?